Alright guys, welcome to the Slava video. This is just going to be my impressions of it. It's not really a full review yet. I'll get something like that out in a bit. I've been kind of struggling with this ship. I don't really know what to think of it at this point. Yeah. So let's just get into it. The dispersion seems... I don't know. It just seems all over the place sometimes. Sometimes it's like the best dispersion in the entire game, and I get massive damage. And other times it's like, oh, okay, I think my Kurfürst could have hit something better than that. Yeah, so that's kind of... I mean, I'm going to show a lot of shots here over a couple games. And I just want you to focus on, yeah, the dispersion that it has. And then also focus on the damage that I get out of that dispersion. I don't know if it's just me, but I find the amount of damage per shell hit, full pen or whatever, or otherwise, it isn't what I thought it would be. It's not nearly as much as it's hyped up to be, I don't think, this ship. I'd probably recommend Ohio over this ship, because those are the two ships you're really going to think about, because they're the most expensive research points ships in the game. So, and naturally they're both battleships, so you just compare the two. And I think Ohio's more fun. In general, I think it'll deal more... it definitely deals more damage per shell hit. And for me, I enjoy the playstyle more, because it is a secondary brawling battleship, and that's what I enjoy. This ship is definitely more of a sniper ship. That's for sure. You know, sometimes like that, you get 5 good solid hits, you know, 2 overpen, but 3 full pens, and you get 10,000 damage, right? That's just kind of this ship. If you're not, it feels like if you're not getting citadels, you're just not dealing that much damage. And keep an eye out for the reload as well. This is the longest reloading battleship at tier 10 right now, I believe. Could be tied with Kremlin for reload. I'm not quite sure, but it is a long reload. This game I'm using reload mod. You'll see me use range mod as well. But there, you know, we're aiming for a Montana cheek, and we don't even hit a single shell. So for this ship to be so hyped up as, wow, the best dispersion in the game, it's so broken, it just hits you every single time really hard, that's not this ship. That's not the ship they put in the game. And that's probably good for the game. A little disappointing for me being a Battleship main kind of player, and you know, every other class has their insanely broken, overpowered ship, and Battleships still don't, but for the game's health, I would agree. It's probably better to not have a ship that just can one-shot someone every time they go broadside. But for my own satisfaction, I wish this ship was that. I wish it was so consistent that you could always deal damage, massive damage, when things are broadside. That's not to say it doesn't, and we've done some decent damage this game. You know, 50k is not nothing. But it's not what it could be, I think. Yeah, so that's all. That's really what I'm going to say on the guns for now. So just keep an eye on what they are doing throughout this game, and the next couple as well. I want to show you a wide spread of situations and scenarios. I don't want to just show cherry-picked examples of good dispersion and be like, wow, this is amazing, or cherry-picked examples of bad dispersion. Say, oh, the ship needs a buff. I don't want any of that. I want a decent overview of what this ship is like. This ship has, in the AA department, it has the best AA out of any tier 10 battleship. Out of any battleship in the game, I think. And as you can see, we still take 2 drops from a Audacious. So AA is not in a good spot right now. Carriers are really, really broken. But I do survive there. Kind of run to the back of the map, as you can see. And here's a Montana that's, you know, angling into me. And what do we get? We get 4 bounces, right? So when somebody says, oh, just angle to this ship, it is true. Seriously, just angle to this ship, and its damage gets mitigated. And if you show broadside, I would say it does more consistently deal damage to broadsides than other battleships, but not to the point that it's brokenly overpowered here. Like, as you can see, this Monty is going to turn out, and I've struggled to deal damage to this guy all game. And now we get, you know, a really nice Dispersion salvo, and a Citadel kills him. But it still took a Citadel and 3 full pens and an overpen to kill him. It's not like this is kind of that insane of a ship, really. I think the shell damage, I think it's just over 12,000 maximum AP damage per shell. I think that really balances it, because here, as you can see, we got a double Citadel and 3 full pens and an overpen, and that still wasn't enough to do the 32-some thousand damage to kill a Smolensk. Now, again, with a Conqueror, he just angles to me. There's almost nothing I can do to him. I have to aim for his superstructure and hope I get full pens there, but really, there's not much for me to do. Assuming you can bounce 406mm guns, which is anything with 30mm of plating or more, just angle to this ship and there's nothing it can do. Yes, it's got sometimes insane dispersion. Yes, it's got crazy range. Yes, it's got amazing shell arcs, but the shells themselves bounce pretty easily. Like this guy right now, for example, he's at a 40-degree angle, and that's not enough to guarantee an auto bounce, and yet we still only did like 7,000 damage to him. You don't even have to angle that well to this ship for it to not deal its massive damage. And yes, broadsides do get punished, which is nice, but that Conqueror's dead anyway, so this salvo really could have landed anywhere and killed him. Yeah, unfortunately, we end up losing this game. Aircraft carriers are kind of broken, overpowered, and so yeah, we just kind of died of this Minotaur. Unfortunately, our Stalingrad used his radar a little early, and we don't actually get him. So there you go. He even got a solo warrior, perhaps the most gifted solo warrior you could possibly get in the game. Yeah, this ship's good. It's reasonably tanky. It's not a Kremlin as far as tankiness goes, but it actually isn't too bad. You can stay alive a long time in this ship. If you play like I do in this game, you will stay alive the whole game. Here I was testing out range mod and playing how seemingly you're supposed to, which is stay at the back of the map and snipe. I've kind of been going through different scenarios trying to figure out what this ship's good at. As you can see, that dispersion's amazing, but I don't think I aimed it too low, and yet it still just kind of lands all just below his ship. So the aiming system in this game is not very good. There is some variance to it. Sometimes your shells will go high, sometimes your shells will go low. So even if you do have pinpoint accuracy, you know, with a bad aiming system, it's not really going to help you that much. So yeah, it's a good ship, but I think I'd still recommend Ohio over it. I still have to, you know, I'll say more in a full review, but it's got good salvos and it's got bad salvos. That's the thing with this thing. I've had a few times where I've, you know, done 40,000 damage or 50,000 damage to a ship with triple, quadruple citadels, and that feels really good, but that same amount of damage probably would have come from another battleship, because it's at close range dealing that kind of damage to things. Again, here's just another example, I think, of you hit a lot of shells, but they don't deal as much damage as you think they would. It's weird. I think 4 full pens and 2 overpens should deal more than 10,000 damage, right? I don't know. It just feels a little lackluster sometimes, honestly. That's just kind of how I feel. And maybe I'm hitting turrets, maybe not, but it's all a part of how this ship feels, right? Now here's a broadside Kerr first, and, you know, we deal some pretty solid damage. But now 5 full pens and 2 overpens is 20,000 damage. So the only difference between that salvo and the previous one was one full bend. And is that really making the difference between 10,000 and 20,000 damage? I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it because the the ribbon system might not be completely accurate. So, but what I'm trying to say is the ship, well, is really good and really accurate. I don't think it deals insane damage per salvo, and its DPM is by far the lowest out of all the tier 10 battleships. Having to wait over 30 seconds for these salvos sometimes feels awful. Really, really bad. And other times it's worth it. So it's a battleship. It relies on RNG at the end of the day to deal its damage. I think that Kuznetsov carries this ship a little bit in the survivability department. You can survive a lot longer just because of that captain alone, which is... I don't think that captain's really good for the game, but it definitely helps the survivability here. The thing you gotta remember with this ship, just despite having only 25mm bow and stern, which means pretty much all AG pens it, pretty much all the battleships at this tier, I think actually, yeah, all the battleships at this tier overmatch it, you still have Kremlin broadside armor, which is notoriously difficult to get through. And you have a 32mm deck, which HE can hit and deal damage to, but if you stay broadside, or more broadside than you'd think you should be, I found this ship to be very tanky because you're using that broadside armor more. They're either hitting your saturated superstructure with their HE, or your upper belt. And I find that really helps this ship tank a lot. And the lower HP pool can help you deal with fires too, because they actually deal less damage per tick than, say, a Kremlin. Obviously, it'd be nicer to have more HP, but I think this is a nice spot for this ship. It shouldn't have the 108k that the Kremlin has. That would be too much, I think. And people just turn. Like, all you got to do is maneuver at these long ranges, and you can just dodge the shells. I don't think it's that difficult to expect people to get better at this game. I don't think that's too much to ask. Instead of nerfing ships to deal with the player base, I think the player base should learn something and develop new skills. So, like that Baltimore there at long range, he could have just gone in a straight line, but he decided to turn, and instantly all my shells missed. I think that this ship could be good game design if the shells were more consistent yet, but they had a slower velocity. I think that if you made this ship have, let's say, North Carolina shell arcs, right? Super slow, really difficult to lead, but made them pinpoint accurate at tier 10, I think that would be a really good ship, because it'd be hard to aim, it would give people plenty of time to get out of the way, maneuver at all, angle at all, but if you didn't, you would get punished. I think that's kind of the game design I'm looking for out of battleships, where it gives chances for counterplay, but if they choose not to maneuver or deal with your ship, your shots, I think, yeah, people should get punished. I really do. And I think allowing people to stay broadside and not take massive damage is not great for the game. There, I wish I would have killed this Richthofen, but unfortunately, we leave him on a little bit of low HP. Our team should be able to finish him off, though. Yeah, I haven't actually had that insane of games in this ship. It really hasn't... I guess it hasn't lived up to the hype. You know, this ship's been hyped up for how many years now? Oh, it's coming out soon, and they're rebalancing it to put it out again, and everybody said it's so brokenly overpowered with its dispersion, but I haven't really seen that, honestly. I haven't seen the games where you're just hitting someone every salvo for massive Citadel damage. I haven't seen those games. To be fair, I've only played a few days of this ship. I think I've had it like 2 days now. and one of them I wasn't really able to play it all that much. So, yeah, my impression of this ship is it hasn't lived up to the hype. It's a decent ship, but it's not the broken, overpowered, amazing battleship that was heralded, you know? It's just a good battleship for long range, or pushing on occasion. It's not going to blow you away, I don't think. That may change, but I don't think it'll blow you away. And so if you're someone who struggles to brawl or just doesn't like or want to brawl people and wants to be a strong ship for cross-mapping and dealing damage, I think this is a pretty good ship for you. But otherwise, I'd recommend Ohio. And as you can see there, close-range dispersion isn't bad. I often hear people saying, oh, Slava gets worse at close range, and that's not true at all. The dispersion on all ships gets better the closer you are. Slava's dispersion simply gets less, it gets better at a slower rate than any other ship. So, at long range, it starts out with the best dispersion in the entire battleship table, which is why these long-range shots seem more accurate than any other battleship. But as you get closer to the enemy ships, somewhere in that 10 to 15 kilometer range, it actually switches. So all the other ships follow the same kind of curve or linear line as they get more accurate as they get closer. Slava's is actually at a different angle, and it'll intersect all of those dispersion lines around that 10 to 15 kilometer range. And then at close range, it actually has worse dispersion than any other battleship. And people are going to say, well, that means it's worse than it is at long range. And well, you can read it that way. I think it's a little misleading to say the dispersion is better at long range than it is at close range, when it isn't. It does have decent close range dispersion. It's just worse than any other ship at close range as far as natural dispersion goes. It has good sigma, so it tends to go closer to the middle. So it's not bad at close range, is what I'm trying to say, because people are making it out to be this horrible ship at close range, and it really isn't. Sure, the armor isn't as good as Kremlin, but honestly, it seems more than fine to me. I haven't had any issues with the softer bow or stern. The deck armor a little bit has gotten me killed like maybe once because of the high explosive spam, but it's really not that bad. This armor is quite good. I would take this armor over, let's say, a Thunderer or a Republic armor any day. This is way tankier than those ships are, by far. So the other thing that is important to note with this ship, well, the bow outer plating is 25 millimeters and allows for those overmatches and full pens of a high explosive. It actually has inner armor that protects its citadel, and so you don't really get citadeled at close range, despite everyone overmatching your bow. So I think that's kind of a design flaw, honestly. I think it should be that the ship gets citadeled easily through the bow, but hey, Wargaming didn't design it that way, so unfortunately, I would have liked to see a little bit more extreme squishiness or balancing factors, where it is a very squishy battleship, especially at close range, but I wish the dispersion was a little bit more consistent on some of these shots. There I had good dispersion, I just didn't lead enough. I'm not saying I aim perfectly all the time, not by any means, but I would say that I aim pretty close to perfect most of the time after this many hours playing this game. And sometimes it's a guess, but when it, like here, I'm going to be guessing that he turns out at full speed in a full corner to dodge some other people's shells. And sometimes you're wrong, and that's just how you got to shoot at cruisers. But I'm more talking about these battleships that are in a very predictable turn, going broadside, and then nothing happens, or very little happens. Yeah, I think the average salvo on this ship on a broadside, assuming you don't get a citadel, would probably be around that 10 to 12,000 damage range, which is not amazing. But I think that's where this ship is needing to get citadels to deal damage. It really feels like if you don't get a citadel, you're not dealing that much damage. And if you get a citadel, okay, then it's like, yeah, that makes sense for this ship. Here we end up killing the Thunder. Unfortunately, this game, there's 2 Richtoffens, which is by far the strongest carrier in the game. Of course, it's the newest carrier too, so a little sad to see Wargaming not progressing when it comes to game balance. They're actually going backwards to what they used to have, which is just disgustingly overpowered ships in the carrier class. They were the regular carriers like the Midway and Hakuryu are already too strong for what they are in the game, and this ship has more powerful tools yet. A while ago, they nerfed the Hakuryu dive bombers because the AP bombers there were too strong. And the Richtofen AP bombers are better than the old Hakuryu bombers before the nerf. So, yeah, a little sad to see that kind of lack of cohesion in their balance department. That shot on that Minotaur, I have no idea how I didn't citadel him through the bow there. That was really weird. Yeah, there's just some salvos that I shoot where it's like, man, I expected more damage. And maybe that's just me having too high expectations on this ship, but I've been told that it's the consistent battleship of all consistent battleships, and that's not what I'm seeing here. It's a good battleship, but it's not the most consistent thing in the world. As you can see on that Bourgogne, we didn't really deal any damage to him at all when he's bow on, and as confirmed by a lot of people just talking in my Twitch chat who have played this ship or played against this ship, a lot of people have been able to rush this ship down by just angling to it. Because what's this ship going to do? If it shoots AP at your bow, it's going to deal negligible damage. If it switches to HE, you have by far the lowest DPM in the game as far as battleships go with HE, or AP for that matter. It's just not good when people are angled to you. So, and I like that design. I'm not saying I want it to deal damage. I actually prefer that ships are relatively safe when they're angled. But then I want ships to be relatively weak and vulnerable when they aren't angled. Now, I'm not saying I should citadel a Kerr first, because it's part of the brawling design to have turtleback. But what I am saying is when I find a ship that has a massive vulnerable citadel, I should be able to hit that reliably when it's broadside and punish it. That's kind of what I'd look for more in battleship design. I wish there was just more skill in this game, more ability to mitigate damage from sources and by playing smart, and being able to deal damage to people by playing smart as well. I find smoked up high explosive spam to be cancerous in this game, and I don't know why it's in the game, especially after the developers have said, hey, we won't ever add a ship with high explosive and a smokescreen at the same time after testing Minotaur with HE back in the day. And now we have Smolensk, Kutuzov, Belfast in the game. So, a little disappointing there to see how times have changed with Wargaming and what they've added. I honestly think that they've just switched out their entire development team. That's what it feels like to me for new people. So, I don't know. Either that or they've just given up on making a balanced game and just want to sell premiums to people. Here's a good example of the dispersion being really good, but me just not predicting where the ship will go. I think that's great. I love that. I love seeing salvos like that. I love it when there's some counterplay between ships where I shoot at him with really good accuracy, but he maneuvers and mitigates it. I think that's awesome. Here, Kerr first going broadside. I'm not really expecting to kill him just with my front guns, just because of how things have been going. But as you can see with a Citadel, that's when you get your damage. That's the only time I've found. So as this game wraps up, that's kind of my thoughts on Slava. Honestly, I kind of like this ship, but I kind of don't like this ship. I'm very lukewarm about it. I enjoy the good dispersion and the, seemingly semi-consistent punishes of broadside cruisers and that, but I don't really enjoy just sniping. I think that's pretty evident from my content. I really enjoy getting in there and brawling people. And that's not to say this ship's bad at it, but it's nowhere near what ships like Ohio are. They're here, unfortunately. It's just we got to find their CV and kill him to win the game, and well, he's just gonna run, and he's faster than me. And what I want you to notice here, and the reason I'm leaving this in, despite me not being able to shoot him until after this, I don't get any more shots on. I want you to see how much damage he deals to me, and how little of it I'm able to heal. You see that? You see how I'm not able to heal any of that damage back? Not really. I think that's terrible game design. I think it's awful that a carrier, or any ship, can deal that much damage to the class that has been designed around taking damage and then healing that back, and then going in and taking damage, and then coming out and healing it back. That's kind of how battleships work. There's an ebb and flow. And I think it's horrible that carrier damage is unable to be healed by battleships or any class, really. But it's just mind-boggling to me that all this is permanent. And at the end screen, I want you to notice how much damage this carrier did to me compared to surface ships this game. And yes, I didn't really get shot that much by surface ships, but I've tanked well over 3 million potential damage in this ship before, when only surface ships are shooting at me by playing smart. And yet, here we are, down on 19,000 health, unable to heal anything more. I've used one heal this game, and the carrier has done basically all that damage. I think the main problem with carriers and surface ships is the lack of interaction between them. For a carrier, it sucks to just have your plane shot out of the air by nothing but RNG flak puffs. And for the surface ship, it sucks to just take random damage that you can do nothing about. It just sucks to play against RNG. And that's what the carrier gameplay is. And from a carrier's perspective, it sucks, despite their ships being insanely overpowered. And from a surface ship's perspective, it sucks because the carriers are so disgustingly strong that they can just destroy your ship in an instant. And see, here you can see, I took 5,000 damage from surface ships, plus a little fire there. 629 damage from fires. I took 6,000 damage from surface ships, and my ship was left on like 15,000 health by all carrier damage. It's crazy to me. I don't understand wargaming development. Yeah. Just a little sidetrack there but that's kind of been my thoughts on Slava, and I guess a little bit of thoughts on aircraft carriers. So thanks for watching, guys, and I should have a full review up soon.